Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for convening this hearing of the FY25 Federal Communications Commission agency budget. And I want to thank the commissioners for being here today. I'd like to start by recognizing the Commission for the unanimous adoption of the declaratory ruling in February, which recognized that calls made with AI-generated voices are artificial under the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. So thank you for that. Yesterday, I introduced my Creating Legal and Ethical AI Recording Voices, or Clear Voices Act. This bill would amend the Communications Act of 1934 to establish technical and procedural standards for artificial or pre-recorded voice systems created through generative artificial intelligence. Consistently, some of the biggest concerns I hear from constituents are regarding the robocalls, scam calls, and texts. With the increasing use of AI in communication, maintaining public trust is crucial, and Clear Voices Act takes great strides in doing that. Chair Rosenworcel, the FCC released a notice of proposed rulemaking to prohibit all early termination fees imposed by cable and direct broadcast service providers. Even President Biden's statement in connection with his junk fees executive order proposed addressing ETFs only to the extent that they are unjust or unreasonable, which appropriately recognizes the contractual nature of ETFs and the benefits customers receive when opting for term contracts. Would it not be more appropriate for the FCC to instead address only unjust or unreasonable ETF practices, such as failure to fully disclose them, and not just implement an outright ban?
So we have an open proceeding on this. We haven't made a decision yet. We have lots of consumers who complain about early termination fees. They signed up for a contract, but then they got saddled with some big lump sum they had to pay when they want to get out of it. We're trying to understand what the scope of what is reasonable is there. That's why we have an open proceeding on this subject. I appreciate what you said. We will make sure we take it into consideration.
Okay. The draft NPRM does not explain how an outright ban of ETFs would be reasonable given the cost savings and other consumer benefits available through term contracts with ETFs, and given the month-to-month service options also available to consumers. How do you justify removing customers' options to choose to get a discount in exchange for agreeing to take service for a specified time period?
Well, that's why we're having a rulemaking. We're asking to try to identify what is reasonable under the context. That's the purpose of having a rulemaking. That's the purpose of asking the public, and I hope we can shape the definition of reasonable as part of that effort.
Commissioner Carr, the chairwoman, has announced plans to move forward the 5G fund while I support closing the digital divide that exists in rural America. I'm worried that adding the 5G fund on top of the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, the BEAD Fund, the Capital Projects Fund, and the Reconnect program will lead to wasted funding instead of connectivity. Do you see this overwhelming amount of broadband dollars as a reason for concern as the FCC considers the rules for the 5G fund?
Thanks, Congressman, for the question. I've supported before moving forward with the 5G fund, but you're right. There's been sort of a sea change in the amount of federal support that's out there since then, not just the $42 billion of BEAD, but by my count, we've made over $800 billion available that could be used for infrastructure, including broadband infrastructure. So as we proceed with the 5G fund, we have to do so very mindful of all these other programs and how do we make sure we move forward in a smart, coordinated way. And those are still issues, I think, that need to be worked out.
Wouldn't it be wise to wait till the BEAD funding is at least partially deployed so that 5G fund is available to fill in the gaps instead of duplicate funding?
That's one of the arguments that we're looking at very closely is how do you align this with BEAD? There is the argument that if you wait until after BEAD, you could potentially have the 5G fund go further. Others argue that they want to move forward sooner in order to take advantage of the connectivity that will be enabled, and that sort of wrestling of those issues is what we're sort of looking at right now.
Chair Rosenworcel, with the NTIA BEAD funding program set to approve most, if not all, state proposals by the end of July, the FCC's national broadband map is a critical component in making those decisions. As the FCC continues to update and refine the NBM, how does the FCC plan to address providers who overstate coverage?
If you willfully or maliciously overstate your coverage, we will send you to our Enforcement Bureau and we will take action. We've already done so. We are also using all available processes to make sure that that data is accurate, including challenges from state, local authorities, other carriers, and consumers. And we welcome any information that you have from your office, and we can incorporate that into our mapping efforts too.
Good, thank you. My time is up. I yield back.